Good morning, comrades! Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Nürburgring. At the end of last year, we made a series of videos with Niklas Lilja, who back in 2017 set a top speed world record with Koenigsegg Agera RS. In the very first video, we said that there is going to be 3 videos. Now, you had already 2 videos with Niklas and 1 video with Christian von Koenigsegg himself. The latter one, however, was a surprise bonus episode, so we still have video number 3 with Niklas. The reason why I'm making this intro right now is because it's not going to be as fluent as the first 2, because it's kind of like I took parts out of that from the first 2 and put them into the last one and made it kind of Q&A. Anyhow, long story short, check out the timeline, check out the timestamps, what we're going to talk about, and enjoy some of the cool bonus topics that Niklas and I talked about. Well, tell us about yourself and tell us, how do you get to do what you were doing back then? How do you end up driving Koenigseggs? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people are excited to find out.
Yeah, thank you for having me, first of all. Yeah, it's a long story actually. I started at Koenigsegg 2004, working there, moving from Stockholm, where I lived and grown up, moving down to the south of Sweden in Ängelholm, where the factory is. And I was 19 at that time, so I was very young. Just finishing school 1 year before that, and working a little bit with my father, who had a workshop, and he was doing some rallycross and so on, and building his own cars and so on. So I've been growing up with a lot of motorsport heritage from my father, building cars all the time. When he was young, he was building his own power boats that he was driving on the lakes and so on. And yeah, been driving rally and all kind of stuff. But he was not so much into asphalt. And I started driving go-kart, not when I was so young. I was actually 14 when I started driving, because I was playing soccer and so on before that. But when I started driving motocross when I was 13, I was driving that for a year and only practicing more or less, but I felt it was not my game. So I tried go-kart instead and fell in love with it. Just falling in love with that special feeling that you have when you're driving something on the edge. Every millisecond counts, and all corners needs to be perfect, and especially qualification when you really need to nail everything. And yeah, it's grabbed me, and I continue on that journey. But we didn't have much finance behind us. This was my father who was working in his workshop, and we were trying to get us forward, but yeah, the first year, half a year, I was only practicing a lot and doing some races. Then I moved up to the higher categories with 100cc cubic engines, where it was back in days, and my 4th race was the Swedish Championship, and I took pole position in that one, and immediately, and it's starting to go pretty good. I would say I never won a race, and that was the thing that I felt like I was missing, more or less. But all motorsport is a material sport, and it's very hard to competing with all these guys that put in a lot of money and a lot of testing and new tires and developing themselves all the time, and it goes up to the ranks all the way to Formula 1. So you need to do something special to be able to go forward and have a bit of luck. But after that, I moved down to the south of Sweden and started working at Koenigsegg. I did that.
So did you do any other cars racing in between, or
No.
it was only karting and that's it?
Yeah, I was 19 at that time.
Okay. Well, yeah, you started at 14, so you had 5 years. And then
But yeah, exactly. But I only drove go-kart from 99 to 2002, and then 2003 was my education year, more or less, and finishing off school. And then 2004 I moved down to Ängelholm. 2005 I picked up driving go-kart that year also. So I was in the top 5 more or less, but never got that really break. But yeah, it was fun. But at the end of the day, I saw that I didn't have the finance to really go forward. So I started working as a race engineer and mechanic instead. And at that
Was that
time,
what you also were studying as well? As
yeah, exactly. I was going in a motorsport school. Yeah, that's, as I said, my father was building his own cars and so on, and doing that stuff. So I've been growing up with that.
Okay, yeah.
So I think it's very interesting to see everything developing and all of that stuff. So more or less, I worked at Koenigsegg for 2 years, but I was working in the development area with service and so on, and I was actually the first guy that was hired in the service department. But
How many people were working back then?
we were three people
In service?
It was me. No, in development and service. So
Okay.
we were 2 guys in development and me in service. But I mean, we only had like 6 or 7 cars at that time, so it was most of the time development work. And I was actually also having one car that we had as a promotion car, that was going around, and a lot of contest driving inside of Sweden also.
And how many people were working in total in the company, roughly?
I think we were 25-ish at that time. And then I stopped working there 2 years later because I felt the hunger for motorsport was growing inside me more and more, and I really wanted to go back to motorsport. So I started working with a super touring team in Sweden for Peugeot. So I was the head mechanic there, because they were having 2 cars that year. We drove that year, and it was supposed to be a 2 or 3 year contract, but at the end of the first year we had a lot of issues with the car and so on, so it was only 1 year. And then 2007 I started working with Porsche Carrera Cup as a mechanic and engineer for one guy that didn't have so much money either, and I wanted to help him, and he also was my best friend at now also at this time. So we were doing that together, and we actually won some races, and I don't remember exactly where we finished off that season, but it was 25 cars or something. We were quite big in the Swedish Porsche Carrera Cup at that time. And it developed, so I worked with Porsche Carrera Cup for more or less 5 years as an engineer, and I had some moving around here and there, and helping some young drivers and so on, maintaining cars and so on. But I then wanted to fill my last piece of the puzzle to be the guy behind the steering wheel also, not always to blame the shit between the seat and the steering wheel. So I needed to have that feeling also, because I could see everything on the computer, analyzing and helping them to drive faster, but I wanted to have that feeling behind the wheel also to see what they are talking about.
Exactly.
So I started driving Trofeo Abarth that came into Sweden 2011, and immediately I was quickest, and I didn't have much money. I leased the car, and my plan was to drive 2-3 races, and then trying to get a younger talent into the car and trying to help him forward. But it turned out that my first qualification I took pole position with almost 2 seconds, and then it continued like that, and I won the 7 first races, and every race we received €1,000 more or less. So it was 2 races every weekend. So I got some money to continue driving, and and then the hunger starts driving inside of me that maybe I'm good at this also. So, but I had the benefit of feeling the car and knowing what to do with the car to make it suit me to drive with it as fast as possible. And I had some tweaks that I felt immediately when I started testing the car that I could bring to the first races that the other guys didn't notice. So I had an advantage of that. And then I continued driving that, and then I was driving the European Championship, and won the European Championship 2015. And I was picked up by Maserati 2014. I was doing some test sessions there in Silverstone. And then I got a drive in Abu Dhabi, the world final for the Maserati Trofeo, and was testing some new brake pads and so on there, and was driving around some important people in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It was a fun time. And 2015 I got a call to come down to Red Bull Ring to drive a development car there for the implementation of the GT4 car. So they were going to slow down the car a bit, so we were testing different things and so on to the car.
Maserati? Or which car was that?
The MC Stradale.
Okay. But did they make a GT4 version eventually?
Yes.
Okay.
Turned all the cars into GT4s, or not all of them, but a lot of them went to America to the Trofeo, the Pirelli Trofeo championship or whatever it was, and I think half of the fleet was converted into GT4 cars with SRO. So yeah, and at the end of 2015, I or not at the end, at the middle of it, after this test, I was on top of Maserati's list of guys, and they were having a project that was going to be something big. But then the Motorsport director called me maybe 2 months after that and said that they needed to cancel everything because Fiat wanted to spend the money on different things, and I think it was a year after Alfa went into Formula One. So I think there was the money was to Alfa to provide them with some kind of platform to go forward. So I bought one car for me to bring and promote it into the Swedish Championship or the Scandinavian GT4 Championship. But the regulations was very, very strange at that time, 2016. So I sold the car at the end of the year. I took a lot of wins and a lot of pole positions with the car, but it was more or less the only car without ABS and without traction control. It was just a pure hardcore car, more or less, with almost everything stock as the street car. So it was a good reliability in the car and so on, and it was a blast to drive, and the sound from that V8 was also crazy.
Yeah, of course.
So 2017 it started to be quite strange for me, not having more or less anything to drive and so on. But I started a project, or I was brought into a project with a friend of mine that was also working at Koenigsegg back then, and that we built the Batmobile. So my friend, he from Caresto, he got that customer in, and he called me and said, I have a crazy project to talk about. And I went there and he talked to me about this car, and he showed me on the computer, and this is just like a cartoon car. Yeah, but we're going to build it. Yeah, but it doesn't exist. No, but it exists in a Batman Arkham Knight. There's a game, and it will be released in 3 weeks. Okay? Yeah, but the customers have already sent a small toy car for us, so we can start. It's going to be an interesting one. And we only have 10 months to build it because it's going to be in the next Gumball. But he sent up a McLaren, a Lamborghini Gallardo. So we harvest that car down to only the plate and the engine bay, more or less. So we kept the engine, and then we used a lot of the parts, and then we built a new structure around it. And the car was 2.5 meters wide, and I think it was 4.5 or 5 meters long, but it had no overhang. So the wheelbase was 3.5 meters or something, and it was a ridiculous cool car, absolutely fantastic and cool to drive. But it had like 25-inch rims and tires, so it was I think 900 millimeters high. So it was a bit crazy with the differential and so on, but it was working, and the customer has been driving that for so many events, and it's been going more than a normal Lamborghini does. So it's quite remarkable. With the time that we spent on that car and just building it in 9 months for 2 people, it was a great project. And at that time I got some information around Koenigsegg that they were interested in a new test driver, and I spoke to Christian about it, and at the end of, or middle of the end of 2017, we got a deal, and I started working there to develop the new Agera at that time. And the car was pretty much done, and it was soon to go into the homologation part of everything. But we managed to do some tweaks to it before it went in, and then some testings and so on, and promotion on that car. And then it ended up with the speed record in the end of 2017 also. With the Agera. And then the real development of that car began for me.
Why did you do it, you as a driver? Why did you decide to take the risk? And for some people it might seem, well, not sound as a risk thing, but...
Yeah, that is a good question. And but I mean, if you get a question like that, it's quite a big honor from the guy in charge. This was Christian, to ask you, and it's a privilege to be able to do that. First of all, second of all, it's a very, very dangerous thing. And at that time, I had a small boy that was only 1 year old, or almost 2 years at that time. And it's a lot of things that goes into life after you having a child.
I know some examples of race car drivers that become slower on track actually after they become that.
I get faster. Oh. No, but
you want to be home quicker.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why.
No, but I mean, first of all, it's an honor, and second of all, I'm a very, very technical guy, and I know deep inside that I was good for it, and also I could bring a lot of contests to this record, and also the state that the company was at that point, where we had a lot of pressure of building the cars and so on, and we needed to produce this record with a very, very small team. And me knowing a lot of things around a lot of things would contribute a lot to this and make it go faster, because as we said in the early episode, that we only had 1 month of preparation. And to answer your question, it can make it or break it. And it's something that you will never ever get to experience in life, probably 1, maybe 2 times, if you're very, very lucky. But it's just something that keeps on eternity, and something that you will get proud of for the rest of your life if you're succeeding. And at the end of the day, all of us dreaming of somehow putting a mark behind us when we leave to the next generation. And it's a hard question. It's a hard question, but of course you're excited to do something. It's a bit crazy, but at the same time I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie also, and most of us race drivers are.
It's a hard to explain thing.
It's hard to explain, yeah. But most of all, you want to produce something good, and you want to do it. It's hard.
Okay, well, the result was there, and one of the questions was by Matt, I believe. Who would you do it again, given the opportunity? Now that you know the risks involved, and maybe or how easy it was.
It wasn't definitely not easy, but at the end of the day, At the end of the day, it was easy.
Yeah.
But there is so many factors of doing this kind of records, and especially in your own mind, how mentally prepared you can be, and so on. And for me, to be able to be there all the step of the way and to have control over a lot of these things gives you confidence, and gives you the boost of eliminating all the bad thoughts in your head and so on, and stay focused on exactly what you're gonna achieve. And being a part of that process of putting it to the tests and everything and developing it gives you so much more confidence all the time. So it would be a big benefit to have me doing it one more time, or doing it because I have the experience. Yes, I would do it again, but I would like to do it more or less the way that we have done it, because the build-up of this record is what I remember the most. The record is just a small part of it, but the build-up of all the technical details of everything that goes into this is the fun part for me. I mean,
as an engineer,
I mean, driving in a straight line, most people can do it, but it's the mental strength to be able to push through when you're feeling the wall against you, and the wall is the air pushing you in front to restricting you from speed. And that is something very, very crazy, and very few people get to experience. So yeah, I would probably do it again if I get asked.
Good. Okay, let's hopefully and as you mentioned, in the same way. So whoever is buying a Yesco, call this man. Right, a couple of other questions that were asked. There were many questions about the tires, and we covered them in the first 2 episodes, how the preparations went, how the simulations went. But still, maybe we can reflect, because actually here, the question by Lionel is how anxious were the guys from Michelin? And then Jeffrey actually said, followed up, the Michelin guys were not anxious at all. Was that true?
Yes and no. I mean, they know what the tire was capable of, but they were not too happy of the high speeds. And I mean, they were probably very confident that the tire will hold up, but you never know what's going to happen with if something is on the track or anything. And they didn't know how the tire would react to heat, and how much build-up of tire pressure and tire temp we would get into the tires when we were exceeding these speeds. I mean, they had some data from Bugatti and so on, and that's why they were a bit anxious, and that's why Bugatti had special tires from Michelin. But also, I mean, you can never be fully relaxed on doing something like this. So of course, everybody was a bit anxious about everything, because we were going into the unknown. So yeah, of course they were a bit, but I was talking to him all the time, and I was giving him all the information and all the feedback for everything, and they calmed down quite a lot after the first runs. They could see that we're not building any tire temperatures and so on. And I actually lowered the tire pressure 0.2 bars when we were doing the 0 to 400. He was, no, let's not do that. Yeah, but we have done that 1,000 times. So, so I lowered it a little bit, but I didn't go as low as I wanted to, but
And well, speaking of Michelin and doing tire, did they benefit anything from that record? Did they get together data for it?
A lot. I mean,
What was the most surprising factor that nobody could have guessed from the simulations?
I think that was actually that we were not building any tire temperature, and that gives a lot of pros to the car. That how is it developed? It's not grinding down the tires at all. It's very gentle on the tire. So I think that was the biggest nose what you can say. thing that they took with them, that it was not building any temperature in that speed, and it should have, but it wasn't doing that. But we were sending them all the data from everything on how we could see the tire expansion of everything, because in these speeds you're having a lot of tire expansion doing this, and there's actually a lot of the speedometer that needs to be calibrated in those speeds, because the tires are growing and growing. And we send all of that data and all of the tire pressures and all the temperatures and everything. And one funny thing is that we had these temperatures of the tires and everything when we're doing braking and the accelerating from 0 to 400. And we were around 80 degrees or something at accelerating on the rear wheels, but then it was cooling down as fast as we were going. But we almost saw 120 degrees during braking on the tires.
Yeah.
So they received all this data, and of course they benefit a lot from it, and they were very happy, and we built a strong collaboration also after this.
I don't know, is there any anecdote that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I've received a lot of question of why I did it and so on and so on, and also the last thing about it is really that I was part of the team when we did the first record 2005, and I mean, I know how big that was for Christian at that time, and then to be a part of it and actually drive the car, what is it, like
12 years later,
it's quite a special thing. And at the end of the day, I know all the struggles that Christian have gone through, this journey of his during the company's time and so on, and it was something very special to be able to bring him that kind of records for him, to really relieve him from the pressure that a lot of people have put on him. That he said actually that the car is that fast. Yeah. And then.
But it's just for many people that's unbelievable. Like in the literal meaning of the word. Like what are you talking about?
Yeah.
450.
And he have received a lot of questions about it and a lot of critique. Yeah. Of course, because that's just a statement. Yeah. And. Well, it's that big relief when you finally do it, and we also produced a higher number than actually he had been claiming. Yeah. So all of his claims have actually been true, and that is a big thing in the automotive thing, and I mean that is something that testament to all the effort that he had put into the company and all the guys and girls at the company, who is always trying to push for more performance and so on and so on. And I mean, there's also been a lot of questions of track time and so on that's been circling around, and a lot of people is just questioning, but you cannot just go in a straight line and blah blah blah. But I know that the car is very, 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 very fast on a track also, but unfortunately it has been very unlucky with the attempts that has been done, very, very unlucky, and I know that they could have broken the records there also, but they haven't showed it yet, and that is a little bit of a shame, I think, because it could have been recognized as the fastest track car also. Yeah,
but we still have plenty of time. So
of course, and the new Jesko will definitely be something top of the cake there.
Yeah, we can put it here in our backyard. I know a place where we can put it to a test. I have a couple of questions of my own, actually. I'm pretty sure that people would find it interesting. A bit of off topic of the record driving, etc. But since you helped to build, or to make this car in such a state in terms of your engineering knowledge and all the setup, what advice would you give to people who set up their car for the track? What's the most overlooked thing that you should put your attention to it?
Definitely the tires.
And do you mean I just need to go buy the most expensive tire?
No, you need to see the whole concept of the car, and you need to see what type of tire is actually working for your car, and you need to dig a little bit deeper into what the tire is doing and what type of camber it wants to have, and you should really ask these questions to the manufacturer. What type of setup should I have on my car? And what type of camber does the car like, and so on, because all these tire manufacturers have different stiffness in the sidewalls. And just for a comparison, I mean, Kumo, for example, very, very stiff sidewalls, not liking a lot of camber. Michelin likes a lot of camber, and then we have a lot of variety in between. So it's really important actually to really know what type of tire you're putting on the car, considering the setup. So it's very useless actually to go to your mate and saying, what type of camber are you running on your car? Because if you're running on two different tires, it doesn't correspond to one another. You need to look it up with the tire temperatures and so on and so on, and what type of delta you should have on the tire temperatures, and then you go into the fine part of it with the toe in and toe out, and at the end of the day, the ride height and the rake and so on, and then you top of that you add downforce, but there's not many cars that have any downforce, and at the end of the day, all this talk about downforce, it's just over 250 to 300 kilometers an hour, and normally you're not turning so much in that speed. And it's very, very hard to get any kind of downforce down in 100 kilometers an hour, where most of the corners are. So it's more working with the mechanical grip and the dampers and setting up the car according to your tire. And at the end of the day, you also need the feedback from yourself, what you like. If you want to have a pointy car or a lazy car or an understeered car or an oversteered car, how you like to drive.
Is there any like racing or like car engineering, the car dynamics literature that you could recommend?
It's a lot of things. But the best experience is really to do it by yourself.
What about sim racing?
Good thing. It's a very, very good thing, especially here on the Nürburgring. I always tell my customers and people that I know, don't really go to the Nürburgring before you have driven the car, driven the track in a simulator. Of course, you can go down and do some calm laps and so on, but for the real petrol heads, do some laps in a simulator to know if it's turning right or left over the crest, because that will give you so much benefits when you're coming here. It costs a lot of money to do all these things, and I mean, coming to the Nürburgring is the best thing in the world. And by knowing the track a bit more when you arrive, you will spend less money and have 10 as much fun when you're coming here, knowing that you're turning left or right over the crest, and also limiting the factor of a driver error and putting the car in the wall and ending all your dreams. So I think it comes down to preparations, as it always does. So Nürburgring is one of the greatest tracks in the world, and I mean, everybody should enjoy it and not be able to feel any kind of fear or so on, but still present. But it gives you a lot more satisfactions if you drive it in some of the simulators before, learn the track and go here and have a blast.
So you're also quite active on the sim racing front.
I built my first simulator rigs 12 years ago. And I've been building like 10, 12 of them and sold to some racing drivers and also some events. When I started driving 2011, I used the simulator a lot to drive on my tracks that I was driving on and so on, and to learn the braking points, which gears I should have, and just feeling the limits. Of course, it's a different thing in the car, but you get very, very close. And actually a funny thing is that when you're driving in the simulator, you start learning, when you're losing the car, you start learning how to react to the drifting part of it a bit, and when you should turn back the steering wheel and so on, because you need to steer back at this exact right time before it goes over, and not too much. So that is something actually I learned from the simulators, and when I did it in real life, it was in my back of my spine already from the first time I lost the car in a corner. And I just flat out with a front wheel driven car, just flat out and then steer against it and then turn it off and you go. So like I said, everything comes down to preparations, and if you get the feeling of the sim racing world, you can only have benefits. But at the end of the day, it's not the same thing as being in the car with feeling all the feeling all the G-forces and so on. And the track itself is a challenge, and the curb is a bit different, and a lot of these things. But for a general things, knowing where to brake and how to turn into a corner and so on, it's great. It's great.
And when it comes to like current sims, which are like, we're not talking about the Formula One €250,000, but just like basic stuff, basic that you can do for a couple of €1,000, and you talk, let's say, Assetto Corsa iRacing, can you already there learn how to set up your car based on the previous things that you mentioned, like the camber, etc.?
Absolutely.
Do you feel the difference there? And can you understand what to do there?
Yeah, absolutely. But you need to, first of all, get to use to the steering wheel, and the biggest difference is here that you're not feeling anything with your butt. You're feeling everything with your hands and your eyes. So as a racing driver in a car, you feel everything through your core and through the butt and so on. Now you need to change that in your mind and feel everything from the steering wheel with force feedback, because that's quite good in the games actually, and see on the screen. And that is something that you need to adapt to, and something that is not comes within 1 or 2 laps. It needs to have some laps on it, maybe a half an hour until you start getting it. As a racing driver, you cannot jump into a simulator and think that you're fast, because it doesn't work like that, because it's a completely different mind game. But a normal racing driver always picks it up quite fast, so I normally say it takes a half an hour to an hour to drive on a track to really start to understand. And then it takes a lot more hours to really understand when you're starting to set up the car, what it does and how it feels and how much steering input and how you should turn everything. And then at the end of the day, it's what equipment you have that is referring to yourself. So if you're having one steering wheel on one simulator and going to the next one with another steering wheel, to complete different things.
What kind of tips would you give to the younger audience, so to say, that want to get into autosport or auto engineering, or to do something with cars? Because for many people it's their dream, but they don't know where to start.
First of all, there's a lot of things at YouTube to look at. Some bad, some very, very good. But try to sort itself out in your own head, and try to contact racing teams. Sometimes you get to be a part of the racing team, just helping with the tires or just washing the cars or whatever. You need to start somewhere, and we have all done that. So I mean, at the end of the day, being within that circle, you start learning more and more. And the more passionate you get, the more you want to learn, and the more you're gonna learn yourself. And passion is everything, especially in all kind of sports. If you don't have the passion for what you're doing,
but then they wouldn't be
go read a book.
Exactly,
something.
They wouldn't be interested in that regard anyway. But it's a good thing you point out, because we all know that motorsport is all about money. At the end of the day, it takes a lot of money to do it, and that's where many teams, they would always look for a way to cut the costs and extra people for free,
Yeah.
that would be a good thing. But and if you have enough passion to do it for free, it's not saying like, okay, you should be doing it for free for the rest of your life, but this is like where the things come together. You can help out the team for free in return for big experience.
Yeah. For example, I was working for free for 3-4 years with Porsche, for example, because I wanted to learn. And that is the thing, that normally with national racing there is not much money, and the drivers and the teams put in all the money to be able to race every weekend. And so I mean, the same thing for me when I started driving in Europe and so on. I didn't have any money. I was choosing between having a mechanic or buying new tires for every race. And I chose to buy the tires because then I know that I had a chance to win. So I did most of the things myself, and sometimes some friends were helping me and so on, and it was a big relief. But that is the thing that the younger generation needs to think about, that you need to start somewhere, and you cannot go and ask for having €1,000 for each race weekend. It doesn't work like that. You need to start building yourself a reputation and a name, and you need to do it for free in the beginning. Of course, you should ask for food and somewhere to sleep. But I mean, it's rough in the beginning. You will sleep in a trailer or somewhere. And I mean, we all have done that, been there. And I mean, that is the best school you can have also, and that's where the passion starts to burn for everything. And don't just sit at home and try to dream of it.
Don't watch our video. Go apply to a race team.
Go out and
go out and do something. No, indeed. That's
I mean, go to racing events. Go to racing events. Look at the races and go to teams and try to start talking to them. You will get a no 9 times out of 10. But sometimes you're lucky and it's the right time at the right spot, and you will get some sweeping the floors or whatever. But as soon as you get in, you're in.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most valuable experience, valuable point that is mentioned. I was also doing, like, I remember back in the days, lots of things related to scooter drag races and eventually car races. And my mother would never understand when I tell, like, hey, we spent my whole weekend like at the racetrack and helping out and building this event. And like, so what? What are you gonna get out of it? Like, well, now I'm getting a lot out of it because experience is the most valuable thing that money cannot buy, or like the education in school cannot buy regarding all these things. It's like the feel for it, and eventually you start appreciating and knowing all the fine details that you need to know when you go higher to the top, because you know how the things are at the very bottom. And that's a very important thing. I guess that's the most valuable question from my side, and I'm happy with the answer very much. So I think that kind of concludes it, unless there is something that we forgot to mention. I already asked your winner's dinner, and it was the steak, but I guess that was the choice of your hosts, so to say. What would be your normal winner's dinner?
I mean, I don't have a special thing really, but I like a lot of things. I've been fortunate to travel around the world now and enjoying a lot of cultures, and it's an amazing world we're living in, and it's a lot of things to learn from other cultures, and it's a rich world we're living in, and I really hope that people will stop judging really, and start thinking with their own minds.
That's a very positive and interesting note to end this series. So again, thank you very much for joining me and giving me the opportunity to share your story through my channel with the people, and I hope it will, first of all, of course, educate people on what it takes to do such an achievement when it comes to records, and second of all, inspire people to do something, to go out and do it, and you don't have to be a son of a millionaire to get to do great things.
And it's our job also to inspire the younger generation that will live after us, and I hope a lot of you will look at this and hopefully you will get some inspiration.
Yeah.
And that is the most fun part for me, at least, when we are at events and so on, and we are meeting a lot of young children and so on, and their fathers also. And they always asking, yeah, what type of education you have and so on. And I normally always say that it doesn't matter what education you have, as long as you have your passion and you're willing to achieve your goals, then you're halfway there. Then you just need to fight for it.
Yeah, and then at some point it will be the right moment, the right time. But
but it's never gonna happen if you are sitting at home and watching YouTube.
So that's the end of today's video. And this video, there might be another series coming out as a bonus. But for now, that's it. The end. Thanks for watching. Go out and do something.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye.